I grew up in Fredericktown, right next to Apple Dan Miller. Old Apple Dan was a legend in our community. He lived over in Waterford. He was also the undertaker for our whole community. He would build all the pine caskets for, I don't know, at least 30 years probably. Everybody in our community that passed away was buried in a casket made by Apple Dan, usually. And he took care of all the arrangements. So if you went to a viewing of one of your relatives, it was normally Apple Dan in charge of the proceedings. And there would be a whole house full of people there for the viewing. And Apple Dan, every hour, every couple hours, he would start a procession to go through and view the body, and then everybody would go through and pay their respects. And then after that, the people that had been through the line, they'd start going home, and then other people would show up. That was an all-day process, and he was there usually all day, taking care of this and helping people through some hard times. Now, Apple Dan unfortunately passed away a few years ago. May he rest in peace. He was also in my church district, and so growing up, I would sit with my dad, and my dad sat pretty close to Apple Dan, so I would usually sit on the same bench as Apple Dan at church. He was also in charge of all the singing in our church district. Like, he was the one who decided what a hymn should sound like, and everybody sang. Like, the way I sing my songs is due to Apple Dan. Every Thursday before church, we had church every 2 weeks. So the Thursday before the next time we had church, so basically 10 days after we had church at our house, we would have what we call an old man singing. And quite a few of the neighboring men and like uncles and Apple Dan usually would show up, and they would sing. They would practice the hymns for the upcoming Sunday. And then usually that next Sunday at church, one of the men at this old man singing would be in charge of leading this hymn because he had practiced it. And it was just a way of like, it was kind of fellowship, because then afterwards, I remember when it was at our house, there would be a lot of nice singing. And then afterwards, there would be coffee and tea and cookies and stuff like that, snacks. So it was always a good time, the old man singing. Apple Dan usually showed up, and he was also usually in charge of the barn raisings. He was just kind of like, he was a force to be reckoned with. He was a good man, though, Apple Dan, and it was my pleasure knowing the guy. God bless.